My name is Emily Carter. I'm 33. I used to be the creative director at one of the top media conglomerates in New York at least, until the day I became the public disgrace of the company, the media, and my own family. It was a Monday. I arrived at the office with a fresh pitch deck for Summit Pharma's upcoming national campaign. But the second the elevator doors opened, I knew something was off. The way my coworkers looked at me, no greetings, no smiles, just sharp glances, suspicion, and silence. I walked into the conference room, and there she was, my sister, Allison Carter. At the time, she was the VP of Operations, sitting at the head of the table, with a thick stack of documents in front of her. Her face was stone cold. Before I could say a word, she flung the file across the table and said no. Announced Emily, "Do you want to confess, or should I walk everyone through the evidence?" I had no idea what she was talking about. Then she turned on the projector. Emails with my signature ones I never wrote flashed on the screen. Alongside them were flagged financial reports, accusing me of funneling money from our advertising budget into personal accounts. I froze. I tried to explain. Told them the signatures were forged, the files tampered with. No one listened. Allison stood up, delivering her verdict like a judge, effective immediately. "You're suspended. Legal will be in touch." Just yesterday, that room was full of people praising my ideas as genius. Now every eye cut into me like a blade. Thief, liar, greedy fraud. I went home that very afternoon. The moment I walked through the door, I saw my mom sitting on the couch, her face stern. She already knew. Allison had called her, told her the whole truth. "I can't believe you'd stoop so low for money. Emily," she said, her voice shaking, "you've disgraced this family." I begged her to hear me out. Told her I was framed, but her eyes, they weren't my mother's anymore. In one single day, I lost my job, my reputation, and my family. 2 days later, an email arrived from HR, following the conclusion of our internal investigation. Miss Emily Carter's misuse of company funds has severely damaged the company's reputation. Termination effective immediately. I had no income. Within 2 months, I had to give up my Brooklyn apartment. I ended up in a dingy little motel on the edge of Queens. Every night, staring at the peeling ceiling above my bed, I asked myself the same question. Why her, why Allison? We used to be so close. When we were little, she'd walk me to school, sneak the better dessert onto my plate. But something shifted when we both landed jobs at the same company. When I got promoted ahead of her, when the industry press mentioned my name and not hers, she started pulling away, colder, sharper. But never, not in a million years, did I think she'd do this to me. Could she have forged those emails, orchestrated everything? Was it jealousy or something else? Money. A week after my firing, it was announced that Allison had been promoted to head of operations, the very role I was once in line for. She now had full authority over contract approvals, including the multi-million-dollar Summit Pharma deal I had spent months building. Industry articles praised her for her remarkable crisis management. I threw up in the motel bathroom after reading one of those glowing features. That was the first time in my life I felt pure, unfiltered rage. That night, I wrote a single line in a beat-up notebook. If no one believes me, I'll prove it myself. But how I had no name, no money, no one left. Did I have what it takes to turn everything around? After getting fired, I tried finding a lawyer to fight back, but no one would take my case. One was brutally honest, Emily. you don't have a clear legal basis, and, truthfully, your name's already on the blacklist in this industry. Blacklist, 3 syllables that sounded like a death sentence. Within 2 weeks, I had sent over 40 job applications, not one call back. Even the agencies I'd once worked with didn't reply, like I'd become contagious. A small Brooklyn startup looking for part-time help ghosted me the moment they Googled my name. That was when I realized I was socially dead. I ended up working at a dive bar near the rundown motel. No one there cared who I used to be. As long as I could stand for 6 hours and smile while serving drunks, I had a job every night. I wiped down tables, mopped floors, picked up broken glass, tolerated groping hands as I squeezed between bar stools. One guy even slid his hand up my skirt while I was clearing his table. I snapped at him and got scolded by the manager. "Customer's always right," he said. One night, I was polishing glasses when I saw her Allison. She didn't recognize me under the dim lights and my face mask, but I recognized those deep plum Louboutins the second she stepped in. The same pair she used to fawn over. The same pair I once promised I'd buy her if we ever climbed to the top together. She walked in with a group of well-dressed colleagues, laughing, ordering top-shelf drinks, talking deals, and in that moment, I felt like a cockroach under her heel. That night, I walked home in the rain, clothes soaked, hands trembling from the cold, and the humiliation. I didn't turn on the light, just sat on the floor, staring at my reflection in a cracked mirror. What do I even have left? No friends, no family, no dignity. And then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, Emily Carter. "This is Mark. I used to be at Summit Pharma. I think you need to hear this." I hesitated, then called back. Mark was one of the managers I'd worked closely with on the Summit Pharma campaign. He told me that shortly after my firing, Allison personally took over the account, and within a week, the ad budget was bumped up by 30%. Most of it funneled into a new agency called Lucent Arrow. "I thought it was odd," Mark said, "so I dug a little. The agency was just formed, no track record, but it landed a 7-figure contract and one of its founding shareholders." He paused. "Is Allison Carter." I couldn't breathe, partly from shock, mostly from fury. She didn't just want to ruin me, she wanted to steal everything: the deal, the clients, the future I had worked 3 years to build. And to do it, she forged evidence, framed me, crushed me to get ahead. "I can't help you beyond this," Mark added, "but you deserve to know." I thanked him, hung up. That night, I dug out my old laptop. The screen was dim, the keyboard stiff from moisture, but I got it to boot. I opened an Excel file where I had once logged every campaign detail budgets, timelines, clients, partner contacts. Then I opened a second tab, Indeed, Concom. I searched for warehouse, freight assistant, logistics intern. Anything that had nothing to do with media or advertising. Because I knew if I wanted revenge, I couldn't play the old game in the same arena. I had to learn a new one. All I thought in that moment was, I'm starting over. What I didn't know then was that everything would change because of a man I didn't even remember serving. 3 nights later, during my shift, a man in his 40s sat at the bar, gray suit, calm demeanor, ordered an old-fashioned. I made it, then casually suggested a better whiskey pairing, just a reflex from my marketing days. He squinted, then smiled. "You used to be in marketing, didn't you?" I hesitated, then nodded. He slid a business card across the bar. "Jackson Low Freight Systems. I'm looking for someone who can talk to people." build relationships. Don't need a resume, just guts. I thought it was a joke. But a week later, I was standing in the Houston office of Low Freight Systems with a job offer, warehouse assistant, nothing fancy. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't just rebuilding. I was going to climb higher than Allison ever dreamed I could. Houston in September felt like standing inside a furnace. I remember being drenched in sweat before my first hour at Low Freight Systems even began. No one there cared that I used to be a creative director. All they saw was a woman with her brown hair tied up, wearing a grease-stained button-down and second-hand steel-toe boots. I was the only one without a logistics degree, the only one who didn't know how to route freight, sort pallets, or even unlock a container properly. I got corrected constantly. One manager, Rick, barked at me. "You think this is New York? Pretty ideas don't get shipments on dock by noon." I swallowed my pride and wrote down every word, every night. I buried myself in online lessons, supply chains, freight systems, 3PL models, inventory protocols. I was living in a shoebox room just off the 610 loop. The walls were so thin I could hear the neighbors' nightly screaming matches. One night, during a downpour, water leaked through the roof and dripped steadily onto the dinner table. I just sat there watching it fall, clutching the same old notebook with those words I once wrote in despair. "If no one believes me, I'll prove it myself." Then one night, my phone rang. Emily Carter. A low, hesitant male voice. "This is Alan, executive assistant to Jackson Lowe. He asked me to call you." I braced for the worst. 3 days earlier, I'd dropped a crate worth $7. Maybe this was the end. But Alan continued, "Mr. Stier, Lowe wants to offer you a supervisory role at our Fort Worth facility. He says you may not have the credentials, but he believes you've got grit." I was silent for a few seconds. I'd prepared for a termination. Instead, I was being pulled forward. I didn't ask why. I just said, "Tell him I won't let him down." 3 months later, I was standing on the warehouse floor in Fort Worth, managing a team of 14, overseeing more than 20 trucks a day. I learned how to handle temperamental drivers, solve delivery disputes, and plan fuel-efficient routes. I even figured out how to calculate dead mileage, something I'd never heard of back in my ad agency days. I'd gone from ideas to execution, from great talker to problem solver. One afternoon, when the skies were still dry, but the wind carried that earthy smell of incoming rain, I got an email from Jackson Lowe himself. "Emily, I'm considering launching an express transport line for medical supplies. I need someone who understands the market and understands how customers think. Let me know if you're ready to take the next step." I smiled. A real smile. Maybe the first in nearly a year. That night, I reopened my LinkedIn. My profile still had that scarlet letter stamped across it: financial scandal, Carter Communications. I didn't erase it. Instead, I posted one sentence: fall 7 times, stand up 8. 2 weeks later, I was appointed project lead for the new express medical delivery line, a pilot initiative aimed at helping small, underserved hospitals across rural Texas. I didn't tell anyone back at the old company. I didn't need to. I wanted to grow in silence. Let Allison think I was still down, still crawling somewhere, broken and beaten. Because what I was building wasn't a defense, it was a takedown. What I didn't know was that Allison was now planning to sell Carter Communications to an international conglomerate, and this time the game would be 100 times bigger. Was I ready to step onto that field? No one tells you that starting over at 33 means learning to bow your head every single day. Not because you're weak, but because you finally understand how much you don't know. In Fort Worth, I wasn't Emily Carter, the former media darling. I was the new Emily, the woman who woke up at 4 a.m. to audit inventory, who ate lunch with truck drivers talking football and strip clubs, who got chewed out by her boss because she forgot to unload a shipment that delayed delivery by 8 hours. But I didn't complain. I memorized everything. The scribbled notes on freight labels, the way delivery windows were split by route, how to reroute damaged goods on the fly. I threw myself into logistics like a freshman on a mission, and for the first time, I understood that the value chain wasn't a polished slide in a corporate deck. It was sweat. It was grease. It was 3 a.m. phone calls when a container jackknifed on the freeway. I worked like hell. And little by little, people started to notice. Rick, the same manager who used to bark at me, began to soften. One day, after I salvaged a late delivery crisis by renting a third-party refrigerated truck and negotiating a comped reshipment, he nodded at me. "Guess you're more than just talk, Carter." I smiled. That was the highest compliment I'd received since New York. Early winter, I was sent to a supply chain conference in Dallas. During a breakout panel on technology in medical logistics, I gave a short but pointed comment. Afterward, a man approached me and handed me his card. "Simon Trask, CEO, MedLogic Group. I liked how you described time as an emergency asset, not a cost. We're building a rapid response medical delivery network down south." Interested, I remember my hand shaking as I held his card. Not because I was surprised, but because I knew this could bring me back into the game, as a whole new version of myself. And I said yes. MedLogic was a mid-sized firm producing oxygen systems, mobile ventilators, and emergency life support kits. They had one big problem: their products weren't reaching rural hospitals fast enough. Their supply chain was breaking down. I dove into their logistics data routes, cost sheets, warehouse lags. I proposed overhauling the entire structure, organize deliveries by hospital clusters instead of state lines, implement cross-docking hubs, and integrate GPS-based real-time tracking. The results: delivery times dropped from 72 hours to just 30. They offered me a senior advisory role, double the salary, private office, personal assistant. But I didn't upgrade anything, still lived in the same old apartment, still drove the same beat-up car, still had $4 turkey sandwiches and gas station coffee. Because I knew greatness doesn't come with applause. It comes in the silence, in the days you get overlooked, in the blisters you earn and hide. Then one morning, I saw a LinkedIn headline: Carter Communications to merge with French media giant Arceval, deal valued at $200 million. The American signatory Allison Carter, interim CEO. I set my coffee down, my head spun. She was selling off the company our father had built, the company named after our family, to a foreign conglomerate. She, who once vowed to keep this company as our legacy. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. I opened my email and typed a single line to Simon Trask. "Remember, when you said you wanted to expand, I think I found a company worth acquiring." And that's how it began. Not as Emily Carter, the disgraced ex-director, but under a different name, a new legal entity, a shadow investor, a card Allison wouldn't see coming. Inside the conference room at the Four Seasons Hotel in Austin, I sat perfectly still, like a shadow. The nameplate in front of me read Eleanor Shaw, Representative Whitestone Holdings. That was the identity I chose for this deal. A new name, a polished, unshakable face. A far cry from Emily Carter, the woman whose name had once been dragged through every media outlet like mud on pavement. On the screen ahead were the final slides of the merger plan between Carter Communications and the Arcival Group. A crisp female voice echoed from the head of the table. At a valuation of $200 million and a retained ownership stake of under 5%. Carter Communications will transfer full executive control to Arcival Group. That woman Allison Carter, my sister, orchestrating the entire operation with corporate precision. Dressed in a pristine white blazer, red stilettos, and that perfectly crafted CEO smile. She radiated confidence, but I knew what hid behind that smile. This wasn't just a merger, it was a power play. Allison was selling off the company our father built from nothing. A company that once prided itself on being by Americans. For Americans, I knew the truth. Carter Communications had been hemorrhaging brand equity. They needed Arcival to survive. Allison needed the money to solidify her position and to slip away quietly before the collapse hit. I wasn't going to let that happen. Right there, in that boardroom, I spoke up on behalf of Whitestone Holdings, a counteroffer $220 million like no merger, no name change. Carter Communications stays American. Silence. The whole room froze. Allison paused mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked to me, narrowed in confusion. I don't recall seeing you in the initial negotiation rounds. I offered a calm smile. We prefer to operate quietly, but we have the capital, and we don't want to see the Carter name vanish from American soil. The board scrambled. An emergency meeting was called that same day. Allison rushed to contact legal counsel, but what she didn't know was this: for the past 3 months, Whitestone had been quietly acquiring shares from minor stakeholders. We now held 38%. Add in shares from an affiliated fund, and we had enough to block the Arcival deal outright. That night, my phone rang. It was her personal number. I answered, "Emily, it's you, isn't it?" Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was hoarse, shaky, tinged with fear. I didn't respond. She kept going. "Why are you doing this? Do you even realize what happens if this deal falls apart? We'll lose everything." Still, I stayed silent. Then I said, "No. You'll lose everything. I'm just reclaiming what was mine." She laughed, dry and brittle. "Because you got fired 5 years ago. You still haven't let that go." I answered slowly, clearly. "No, because you stole my future, and I haven't forgotten." Then I hung up. The next morning, I walked into Carter Communications' law office as Whitestone's lead representative. In front of the executive board, I announced that we were blocking the Arcival merger and offering to buy out the remaining shares full payment within 30 days. The blow landed so hard, Allison sat speechless. She couldn't refuse. If she tried to push forward, the board could file for her removal on grounds of dishonesty and conflict of interest. I was in control now, and she was being cornered inch by inch. That evening, I received an anonymous email. Masked IP, subject line. "Your sister hasn't told you everything." Attached was an audio file, a secret recording from 5 years ago, a conversation between Allison and a former IT staffer, plotting how to fabricate a fake email account, forge internal memos, and pin embezzlement charges on me. The final nail, the coffin for the lie that destroyed me. I had everything now, but the question was, would I use it to ruin her completely? or let her live in silence watching me take over the empire she betrayed? I hadn't decided yet, because sometimes silence is the most terrifying revenge of all. 3 weeks after formally submitting my offer to acquire Carter Communications, I sat in a sleek glass-walled conference room in Midtown Manhattan. Behind me was a full legal team from Whitestone Holdings. In front of me were the same faces that had once dismissed me, ignored me, and helped shove me out of the very company my family built. On the table lay the final share transfer agreement, and I, Emily Carter, or as they now knew me, Eleanor Shaw, was the one holding the pen. Allison wasn't present. Ever since I derailed the arseful deal, she'd vanished from the public eye, citing a personal leave of absence. But I knew better. She was spiraling, scrambling to salvage what she could, or at least avoid a total collapse. But every exit had been sealed. I'd quietly purchased small equity chunks from legacy investors. I used a shell entity to keep my name hidden. I even brought in an old friend from my ad agency days to draft a fresh valuation strategy, one that projected Carter Communications' long-term worth at 1.5 times what Arceval had offered. Then I gave the board a choice: sell to me or get picked apart after the merger fell through. They chose me, and so, today, I signed. One simple stroke, one cold, final signature. Emily Carter was now the sole owner of Carter Communications. I remember how it felt when I lowered the pen. No applause, no champagne. Just the steady, clinical rhythm of my heartbeat, and beneath it, a storm I kept buried. That night, I walked into the company's headquarters for the first time in 5 years. The old security guard had long since retired. The lobby was renovated, but the scent of wood polish, the faint chemical tang of floor cleaner, the distant hum of a copier down the hall, they hadn't changed. I rode the elevator to the 14th floor CEO's office. On the door, the nameplate still read, Allison Carter, Chief Executive Officer. I removed it with my own hands, placed it in a drawer, and replaced it with a new one. Emily Carter, Chief Executive Chair. No one could understand what that moment felt like. It wasn't triumph. It was purification. A full circle reckoning. Proof that every fall that doesn't kill you builds a version of you that cannot be broken. And yet there was one thing left, the recording. The proof that could end Allison's career permanently. Possibly even lead to criminal charges. I sat alone in my new office, staring out across the street as the city lights flickered like blades of glass. Somewhere out there, Allison was still breathing, still living with everything she'd done. I remembered us as children, cutting up newspaper clippings of Dad's company, glue-sticking them into scrapbooks. She used to tie my hair before school performances. She was once the person I trusted most in the world. And then she cut the cord herself. I opened the file, played it. Her voice calculated, manipulative, discussing forged emails and fake accounts with a former IT staffer, plotting to frame me for embezzlement so she could take my place. I could send it to the press, take it to court, end her entire career irreversibly. But instead I deleted it, not out of forgiveness, but because I no longer needed it. Winners don't expose, winners reign. The next morning, I held a company-wide meeting. At first, no one recognized me. I wore a sharp black suit, hair down, voice crisp and steady. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm back. The room went dead quiet. A few faces lit up with stunned recognition. One person whispered to a colleague. Someone else tried to raise their phone to record. but my assistant quickly shut it down. I continued, I'm not here to rehash the past. I'm here to rebuild this company for what it used to be, a bold, honest media powerhouse. Then I looked straight into the live stream camera. We're not going back to the old Carter Communications. We're becoming something better. And I'm the one who's going to lead us there. After the meeting, I returned to my office, closed the door, sat down, and for the first time in years, I cried, not from pain, not from rage, but because I had survived. And now I was me again, only stronger. A week after I formally stepped into the role of Chief Executive Chair, Allison showed up, no call, no warning. She walked into my office wearing a dark brown wool coat, her hair loose and tangled, eyes hollowed with exhaustion. The proud, pristine CEO I once knew was gone, replaced by a woman whose trembling fingers betrayed the collapse happening inside. I motioned for my assistant to close the door. It was the first time we'd faced each other since the day I was fired 5 years ago. She spoke first. What do you want from me? Her voice was raw, cracked. You've already taken everything, the company, the title, the press, even Mom. Isn't that enough? Do you want me to lose my whole life? I looked at her not with anger, but with the calm of someone who's already walked through fire. No, Allison, I don't need you to lose everything. I just need you to know exactly what you did and never forget it. She let out a bitter laugh, the kind of laugh you make when you've already sentenced yourself. I know what I did. The fake emails, the forged documents, that PR smear campaign about your mental instability. I did all of it because I was afraid of being left behind. My hands tightened slightly, but I didn't flinch. She stepped closer, just a few feet away now. Her eyes locked onto mine, desperate to be seen. You were always better than me. You still are. But I couldn't let Dad see that. I couldn't let him believe that the heir wasn't me. A pause. I looked up at the photo of our father, still hanging behind my desk. In it, he's smiling his hands on our shoulders the day we opened this building in 2009. I said softly, Dad always knew, but he never needed you to win by destroying me. Allison bowed her head. Her shoulders trembled. I stood, walked around the desk, and handed her a paper I had already prepared, an honorary resignation letter, voluntary, stating that she was stepping down for personal reasons, no legal or ethical wrongdoing attached. I won't destroy you, I don't need to, but you need to leave this place and never come back. She took it, her hand shaking, signed without saying a word. Before leaving, she turned back. Emily, I'm sorry. I nodded. I don't forgive you, but I accept that. And then she left. No goodbye, no second glance. I stood by the window, watching traffic pour down the street like liquid chrome, and felt something heavy lift from my chest. Not because I'd won, but because I chose not to become like her. That afternoon, I held a small press conference. I wore a black blazer, hair tied back, voice steady. My name is Emily Carter. I haven't returned to defend myself. I've returned to write the next chapter of my family's legacy with honesty, courage, and zero tolerance for deceit. The speech went viral. The media began calling me the woman who rose from the dark. Inside the company, the whispers started to shift. Employees retold the old story with new eyes. Apology emails came in. Some even stopped by in person, teary-eyed, whispering we were wrong to stay silent back then. I didn't blame them. I just wanted to make sure they never made the same mistake again with anyone. 2 months later, Carter Communications signed a strategic deal with MedLogic Group, expanding statewide medical communications services. Revenue jumped 40% in the first quarter. As for me, I kept the same old desk. Still showed up at 7 a.m. Still drank cheap coffee from the communal machine, because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I was me. And the world had no choice but to recognize that.